Welcome to Mary Alice.
What did you do?
We are a Desperate Housewives recap podcast with me, Erin McGee.
And me, Jakub Tansey. Two best friends breaking down each episode until we answer the ultimate question, Mary Alice, what did you do?
Unless, of course, we have finished season 1, in which case, insert new mystery here.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack on Wisteria Lane.
Content warnings can be found in the episode description.
So get comfortable and let's get into this week's episode. Hello.
Hi, welcome back. Or for us, welcome again, because we are recording 2 episodes in a row today for the first time.
When we're surprisingly energetic for the second episode, we had a lunch break.
I think we're chipperer.
Oh.
Dare I say?
You're all in for a treat. This is episode 12, Every Day a Little Death. Will we be adding to the death count? You'll have to listen to find out.
Ooh.
I wanted to kick off this episode with a random question.
Oh, this makes me scared. Okay.
You don't need to be scared.
Okay, are you my GP?
Well, I wanted to ask, if our main girlies had their own podcasts, what do you think they would be about? I have some thoughts on some, and none on others.
I think Gabby's would be some sort of fashion critique one, kind of like on E, what Joan Rivers used to do, critiquing the red carpet looks. But I imagine her doing the Met Gala as a full series.
Okay. I envision Mary Alice doing a Help You Fall Asleep podcast.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, she's just like reading some very mildly interesting, mundane script, much like the podcast Sleep With Me, but it's just her voice, and I'm so here for that.
I love Sleep With Me.
I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I went through a phase for sure.
Yeah.
I also think Bree would have an ASMR cleaning podcast. Nothing but the best polish for this silverware.
Susan's got a Why Won't You Date Me messy dating podcast.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Where she brings on Carl every week and is like, why did you stop loving me?
And she'll do that for like 2 episodes and then she'll be like, I'm out of exes, so now we're just talking to friends.
But she brings on Mike, he's silent the whole time.
I think business, well, you see where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah.
I think Lynette definitely has a business tips podcast to help her feel like she's still in the game, but she struggles to record every week because her kids are so noisy in the background.
You hear them in the back every episode.
Oh yeah.
She's sponsored by Mindful Apps. Mike has a horrible, awful true crime podcast where he's trying to uncover mysteries, but he's so bad. He's like getting everyone's names wrong. He doesn't know how old anyone is.
People have actually gone to jail and then they've been released when they realized they were wrongly accused after Mike's podcast put them in the spotlight.
Yes, 100%.
I worded that poorly, but you know what I mean.
Tom has an Incel podcast.
And
and I feel like Carlos has a golf one.
Maybe he does that with Rex.
Carlos and Rex have a little laddie golf. Kex. Is that how you pronounce?
Computer exchange?
Yes.
I don't know. I kind of waver between pronunciations.
Yeah, I remember when we were young and people would be in the street, like when you're a teenager. I'm gonna go to sex.
I think I just say CEX most of the time, or just computer exchange.
Here's my question. Jakub.
Yes, Erin.
If you were to do another podcast, but it's guaranteed to be a hit, so it could be the most niche topic you could possibly think of, what would you do it on?
This is going to be such a cop-out. If it's like a guaranteed to be a hit, I would just think of what is the most low-effort podcast I can do. Just ASMR, Jakub is doing chores at home.
For the people at home, Jakub puts a lot of effort into this podcast.
Because it's not a guaranteed hit. Just wait till we get 5,000 followers, you go blonde, the fame gets to my head, and I immediately put no effort into editing.
Yeah, you don't smoke, but you're smoking in this in my fantasy, and you're like, are we talking about cheddar this week? You mean brie? Whatever. That's how I see it.
I can't wait.
I would definitely have a Stardew Valley podcast.
Great. I don't know anything about it, so that's for you to talk about.
Well, yeah, I can get into all the lore for you on the pod. Anyway, okay, right. Let's start this one.
Okay.
Okay, until we get to niche podcast. Let's just keep going with this.
Yeah,
for that.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. We'll branch out later.
Okay.
We open with a montage of Martha Huber's life. Specifically, all the times that she's fantasized about her boring life being exciting. My favorite example of which being when she was 9 and she used to wish she'd be kidnapped by a band of pirates.
Yes.
Marielle's voiceover tells us that she realized as Paul was murdering her, probably not the excitement she was looking for, that life could be both boring and cruel. We see police excavating Martha's body from the woods and confirming her identity from the missing persons poster. A policeman, Officer Jackson, for some reason decides to speak to Martha's corpse in the same way you'd speak to a pet. Do we think he has any relation to Mr. Fisk?
Oh my gosh.
He's just so used to speaking to dead things like animals.
I think he's that person that you work with in your office who everyone is sick of their stories.
Oh my God, so true.
So he's just going to the corpses and having a little gab. Also, there is at one point one of the officers goes, "What do you think?" and holds the poster next to Martha's face. As if there is any doubt that that is the same person. As if there's any decomposition at all, in fact.
Truly.
Bad
They put the hat from the picture on to confirm.
Bad policeman. The only other thing I want to say is that I have had all of Martha's fantasies. So, kidnapped by pirates, yep. Discovered by a Hollywood talent scout, yep. Handsome millionaire would sweep her off her feet, yep.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't we all wondered that?
The big three.
Yeah. The Officer Jackson tells Martha's body that she's going to be on the front page of every newspaper in the state. He's like, how's that for exciting? Again, to this corpse. And then Mary Alice tells us that for a second, Officer Jackson could swear he saw the corpse of Martha Huber smile.
Well, sorry, she mean to go on with this episode,
Yep.
I guess.
So we're going to do something a bit different this week.
Oh no, Jakub, we sound like one of those hipster bars where it's like, we aren't like other restaurants. Like,
We're not like other podcasts.
yeah, we recommend you share 2 to 3 small podcasts at the table amongst each other.
So to explain what we're going to do a little differently this week, the first scene from each of the women's arcs is connected in some way.
Yeah, it's a poetry.
Yeah, it's we're playing a game of telephone here.
Yes.
And so we're going to do the first scene of each of the women's arcs to kick us off before we go into the individual storylines. So why don't you start us off with immediately after the opening credits and then Susan? So
immediately we have a policeman approaching Felicia, who is watering the lawn. I'm guessing there is a bit of tenderness here because she's clearly still taking care of Martha's lawn, and we know Martha loved her lawn with her little gnomes. Also, I bought a gnome.
In other news,
I don't have a garden, so I bought a tiny little garden gnome in homage to the Hoobs.
yeah, he's gardening the plants.
Yeah. So anyway, Felicia drops the hose, which I think is very telling that even though she was convinced that Martha was dead, this is still shocking news.
Felicia gets that news and drops the hose. It is sad. But it's also fashionable because I quite like her red and black ensemble.
Oh, yeah.
But mostly I just like that every single outfit we've seen her in has this kind of shawl scarf thing that covers her shoulders. It's just a very distinct look. She's making a name for herself in the shawl world.
Yes.
She's got a podcast about shawls.
She so does. We cut to Susan, who is described by, I think, Mary Alice as blissfully unaware.
Yeah, Mary Alice tells us that the news of the death or the body being found was beginning to spread. And so... yeah.
I love how you said spread there.
You're welcome.
So Susan has come over to Mike's to let him know that she's finished her book, and surprise, Edie's there. And she has hired Mike for the rebuild of her house. Edie goes too far here.
Does she?
Yes, she says that she's going to be riding him hard. Like, they're in love, Edie. Leaves them alone.
But again, we talked about this in the last episode. I think this is more of Edie in her mind trying to build a friendship with Susan, and her view of friendship is kind of teasing each other and stuff. And I just think it's more of that.
Maybe. That is a really nice interpretation of it.
Because she's making these comments to Susan, but she's not trying to get with Mike at the same time. It's just between her and Susan.
That's true. That's true. I'll give you that. Susan then goes in for a ridiculous makeout session. I'm guessing to make Edie jealous. Like, are these women in love? Just kiss. And Edie's phone goes off and it's Felicia. And it's not fun anymore.
No. Yikes. Yeah. So yeah, we've had Edie get a call from Felicia. And in the next scene, we have Lynette. Lynette turns up to a 10 a.m. yoga meditation with two of her kids. The twins are at school. She's got her baby and she's got the nice one who is a bit unwell. So he's got the day off school. I guess they haven't found a new nanny yet.
No.
There is a daycare there, but the list is full. So Lynette tries to squeeze her name on underneath the list to get her kids in, but the receptionist stops her. Lynette is trying to explain it's impossible for her to get here any earlier with all of her kids. One of them is sick right now. She has so much to do, etc., and it's always fully booked whenever she arrives. The receptionist couldn't care less. But also, why are you bringing your sick child to mingle with other children? That's rude.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. The receptionist almost wins me over by explaining that if she breaks the rules for Lynette, she'd have to break the rules for the other moms, and then people would get mad at her. And as someone who's worked in customer service and in reception in the last couple of years, I get it.
Yes.
But then she makes a bitchy comment about how that would mean she wouldn't have time to read her magazine. And then she loses me with the sarcasm. That's bad customer service.
Bad receptionist.
Bad receptionist.
It's one of those things, though, as well, where you don't know if the daycare has a license for a certain amount of kids and insurance.
Exactly. It's a safety thing.
But then it was 2004. Insurance hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah, it was a different time.
I love that Lynette says, as a threat, I hope someday you have lots of children.
Yes, it's so good. And then at the very end of the scene, Lynette gets a telephone call from Susan to tell her about Martha.
Susie Q. I love it when Carl calls her that. I do. Susie Q. Then, Bree has been on another date with George. And it feels like he's just helping her run errands a little bit.
Yeah, because Bree's got loads of packages and stuff.
Yes. So Bree is feeling like she's being a bit of a wrong soul here for playing with George's feelings. But she's clearly just wanting to make Rex hurt in the way that she hurts. So she keeps checking up to the house there outside to see if Rex has pulled the curtain and taking a peek to see what they're doing. The second she does see Rex doing that, she gives George a hug. The other thing I would like to note, I like Bree's blouse.
Sure.
It's a cute blouse.
Yeah.
So she then receives the phone call from Lynette. I like hearing who each of the girls call.
Yes. It's telling a little bit.
Yes, a telephone.
Do we think any part of Bree at all at this point cares about George, or is she 100% using him as a tool right now to punch Rex, essentially? And don't get me wrong, I think that's mostly what it is, but I'm wondering, is there any amount of her? Because they do have a lot in common and stuff, you know?
I think for her, it's a friendship. She's like, and she doesn't see it as him getting too attached because she's in this kind of courting phase. She doesn't think she's leading him on because she's not sleeping with him. We've not seen them kiss. And she really isn't doing anything but hugging him. So I think the fact that she also says to him, the first thing we ever hear her say is that he's always been so nice to her. I do think there's a little bit of her ego in there as well. It's this man can be nice to me and he thinks that I'm cute and it doesn't matter if my husband doesn't feel that way because someone will kind of thing.
That makes sense. So then we have Gabby. Carlos is returned home by the police having made bail. I guess the burnt passport worked out after all.
Clearly, the receptionist at the passport office did not care.
Truly. She said, if I have to question this, I will not have time to read my magazine. Gabby greets him with cheap champagne, but is excited to live it up again now that Carlos is back.
Do we think this is Lambrini?
I don't think Gabby would stoop that low even in her darkest hour. This is Tesco's finest champagne, and that's a cheap drink to her.
That's what we bought to celebrate the pod, and we were
and we are not
out.
Gabby.
We are not.
As soon as we find our sugar daddies, Erin, we'll be living it up beyond the Tesco's finest champagne when we celebrate. Sorry, Rory.
Every little helps.
Carlos is back, but he is also on house arrest and can't go anywhere. Specifically meaning he can't go anywhere to work, which is devastating news to Gabby as she realizes she'll have to keep working. But she does eventually toast to Carlos's release. Now, this plotline would not have worked in 2025 post-COVID because Carlos probably would have been working from prison still on smuggled in iPhones if it were. But in any case, Carlos is quite playful and upbeat in this scene, which we haven't really seen from him before. I guess he's just kind of happy not to be in prison anymore. But in any case, it is the first time I've looked at Carlos and thought, he seems nice. That won't last. But in this scene, that's what I thought. So then at the end, Gabby gets a phone call from Bree about Martha. And then we have telephone, the finale.
So I love everything about this. I said in the last episode that the housewife I am most like is Felicia. This scene is the bang on example of that. If anyone who listens to the pod who doesn't know me in private, this is me. So Felicia's in her beautiful bob and shawl, and she mentions that she's looking for Martha's diary. She's speaking to the cop, and they look outside and see that all the neighbours have gathered. Felicia calls them vultures. She clocked them and clocked us all at home, to be honest. And Felicia is absolutely bone-chilling. Edie is genuinely upset, but Felicia walks out and starts giving in extreme detail everything that happened to Martha, including Martha died a violent death.
Yeah, as she's walking out, she says to the policeman, well, let's give the people what they want.
And it is what they want. And also, this is what I think should be done in a situation like this. I think it's supposed to be funny, and it is, but also, thank you. I'm getting all of the information here. This is the same energy I have where a couple who you don't really know break up, and you just want someone to do a tell-all story to find out what happened.
Again, this is the difference between me and you. I am not bothered.
And also, I should not laugh at this. Felicia says, but the good news is there are no signs that she had been molested.
Now, I think it's time that you return to your homes, to your loved ones.
And she announces that the next day she'll be having an estate sale.
In lieu of a memorial service. No personal checks.
I am obsessed with her.
She's so funny.
She also has she has my habit of giving way too much information and over-explaining.
She also her cheeks must be in agony from the permanent devilish grin she has on her face at all times. Like, I see this vibe for Bree in the future if she had no friends or character development, just this permanent locked on smile of like, everything looks great.
I think you're right there, actually.
So now we're going to continue with Lynette's arc. By the next day, everyone on the lane has heard about Martha, and there are no exceptions, because we see Lynette's spawn of Satan drawing pictures of Martha's body buried underground. But this doesn't concern Lynette, who wants to play poker with her friends. So she bribes her kids with a pack of chewing gum, saying that if they're quiet while she plays cards with her friends, they can have the whole pack. And I don't know if you should give kids that young chewing gum, because like you're not supposed to swallow it and stuff. In my head, I'm like, these kids are too young.
I think it's important to know that whilst they are too young to be having chewing gum, to Lynette, it's still better than giving them medication that they were given a diagnosis for.
Indeed. But
that being said, Lynette's never done anything wrong.
Yeah. So downstairs, Lynette rejoins the other women setting up their game and discussing their shock at Martha's murder.
It was nearly my quote of the week. When Lynette says the last time she spoke to Martha, she got yelled at for not bringing her garbage cans, and Bree immediately, I'm going to miss her.
Oh man, there's just little moments on the show like that which perfectly encapsulate the vibe each character gives.
Yes.
So Edie comes over and mentions that she loves poker when she sees what's going on. And after a very, very awkward silence, she gets to business and invites them all to a memorial she's hosting for Martha, since Felicia, who Edie refers to as the Ice Queen, isn't doing anything. She's planning to drive Martha's ashes up to the spot her husband proposed to her and scatter them in the lake there, and thought it'd be nice if some of the neighbors went up there to have a small ceremony. I freaking love Edie.
I think it's interesting that this is played as just 2 lines and kind of forgotten about. But as a gesture, her scattering the ashes where Martha was proposed to is so beautiful.
It's incredible. Do you think I can put in my will that I want Nicolette to scatter my ashes when I die?
I think you can certainly write it down. But
it can't be enforced.
Much like your S6 drama script, nothing will come of it.
Wow. She said, I'm the writer. So Gabby, Lynette, and Bree all give their excuses as to why they won't be there, which really do sound valid, whether or not they actually would want to attend regardless. But Susan just sits there quietly until Edie demands to know what her excuse is. She doesn't even bother coming up with one. She's just busy. Stuff. So Edie storms out after telling Susan her friends are much better liars than her. Oh. Susan is so horrible because Edie has truly done nothing to her. And Susan even won Mike in that early season love triangle. And lest we forget that she burnt Edie's house down, yet continues to seemingly hate Edie more than anyone. And I can't stand it. Susan continues to flop. Episode title, Susan is a flop. And that will be every title going forward for the foreseeable future.
Every day.
Don't you dare disagree with me. Don't you dare disagree with me, Erin.
Every day I am glad that I taught you to call people flops. This episode's weird because it comes after the one where we find out that Edie and Carl have kissed during their marriage.
Yeah, but that also never comes up again.
Yes, but I mean, I understand that is a raw wound. But again, it's hard not to root for Edie when she has come to this poker day and the girls aren't even trying to be her friend.
Her best friend has been murdered. Yes. She's just found out and they have no empathy.
They're not even saying,
how are
I'm
you?
Really sorry to hear about such and such. Or when I'm thinking about the pilot with Bree coming over with the snacks for Paul and Zach. And obviously that's because they were a lot closer to Mary Alice, I'll give you. But just basic empathy would be great at this point.
And I'm going to tell you right now that my worst neighbor for the week is the Mean Girls collectively. All of our main characters, they're the worst neighbor this week for me.
Yep. You know what? I'm not going to argue about that. And I also would like to clock the hive mind of the girls as the monster of the week.
Oh, stunning. Stunning.
We then see that the spawn of Satan have been playing with the chewing gum, and the gum is all now in the good kid's hair. Friends at home, the good kid is Parker.
Yes.
And Lynette is trying to get the gum out of Parker's hair. I do think there is a way now that we know how to do this because, well, I guess Google isn't really around at this point, or at least not to the same extent. So Lynette's not familiar that she can use coconut oil or whatever. So she's having to cut the gum out. And she said that she needs yoga class to be a good mum. And Parker says, I think you're the best mummy in the world.
It's so sweet.
And then Lynette immediately is like, the buzzer ready to shave Parker's head.
And that we've referred to him as the nice one for quite some time. But yes. I think this is the first real scene where he gets in the show, period. Like he's in the background at times, but this is the first Parker scene.
Yeah, and I think it's, I always feel sorry for Parker a little bit because if you have siblings who are twins, they have this unshakable connection and they kind of have a built-in best friend. So it always feels like Parker's kind of a little bit left out.
Yeah, it's a bit sad.
Yeah.
Lynette turns up to the yoga meditation again.
Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you right there. We write our scene titles for the notes, and you called this one "The Nice One Has Cancer."
Well, it's funny when you also look at the next scene title. Don't tell it out of context and make me look so blunt and heartless.
I'm giving you the villain edit.
Also, spoilers. So Lynette turns up to yoga again, this time 10 minutes early to get her kids into the daycare, but she just missed the rush and it's full again. And honestly, I don't know why anyone thinks that something that popular, turning up just 10 minutes early, is going to make a difference. That's on Lynette. But anyway, Parker is now there with a shaved head. He takes his hat off and he coughs. He's still ill. He's got like a cold.
Yes.
But this, along with the comment from Lynette to the receptionist saying she had a sick kid before, prompts the receptionist to presume that Parker has cancer and is going through chemotherapy. And Lynette is about to explain the situation and what really happened when the receptionist takes pity on her and tells her to go ahead inside and that she'll make room for the kids. Lynette thinks about this for a brief second before nodding and just rolling with the lie.
I mean, I just hope that letting Lauren believe that her child has cancer doesn't have any bad karmic consequences for Lynette.
And we're going to come back to that in a few years.
And now for the scene Jakub put in the notes as "The nice one does not have cancer."
And also, when I said the nice one has cancer, it was with a question mark at the end. It's the nice one has cancer?
There's no question mark in my notes.
I was going to take a dramatic sip there, but there's nothing left.
Sip your Pepsi Max. Big Pepsi, hit us up. The next time we see Lynette, she has gone into the class, picking up Parker so he looks vulnerable, holding him like a little baby koala. And Lauren lets them in once again.
She also just like skips the line of all the other moms, basically.
Yeah.
We then see Lynette leaving the class at the end of it, and the receptionist introduces Lynette to a woman who wants to meet Parker, who is a real cancer survivor.
Allegedly.
That's true. We don't have her backstory. I'm sure we'll come up with a really elaborate one over time, though. This woman hugs Parker and kind of freaks him out, prompting him to ask his mom if he's dying. Oh. Everyone stares and the truth comes out. Lynette leaves knowing she won't be able to return. And here's what I have to say about Lynette's entire arc this episode.
Funny.
This was an irrelevant B-plot. We gained nothing. I actually feel a little mad. Like, I want my time back for watching it, from writing my notes about it, and from the time we've now spent talking about it.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious.
One of my exes once referred to a scene in a TV show that didn't serve the plot exclusively as a gratuity scene, which I found very funny, but this felt more like a punishment scene. It was not worth the laugh. I don't know why I'm so angry about it, but I was when it finished, and I was like, that's it?
Let's keep this energy for some of our other characters, shall we?
Oh, I'm just getting warmed up.
Let's leave Lynette
and
alone.
Go to Bree, where I'm going to get real angry soon.
Yeah. You know, like, don't let her get caught in the crosshairs, you know? Crosshairs? Crossfire? Cross.
Well, there's going to be shooting regardless in this arc.
Let's get to Bree. Bree is having a picnic with George. And the first thing she says that I want to clock is that she assumed that George would make fun of her because her default is that a man will make fun of her and shoot down her ideas.
Mm-hmm.
George goes for a handhold and Bree rebuffs it. To which I say, how many dates has that been now without them having any romantic contact? Anyway, it's interesting. George has given another gift to Bree, is what we hear. And Bree begins to unwrap it. And she gets very emotional.
Yeah, we're wondering, what is this? Is it more flowers? No, it's a nice little box. Is it some jewelry? No.
It's a gun. And I was cackling. She's like, this is a 9mm Luger P08. And she's ready to cry. And he says, from the moment you said you were in the NRA, I knew I wanted to give it to you.
Oh.
No, this scene is hysterical. There is no argument about it. But something I thought was interesting is this, to me, is a repeat of the Rose situation from John and Gabby.
Oh, okay.
In that these are the right actions, but this is the wrong person.
Yeah, because like when Bree is kind of lost in the excitement of this antique gun, George really just takes advantage of the situation and puts her hand on her leg, which Bree takes.
Because she's attracted to power and feeling powerful. I think it's fair to say she's aroused by it.
It would seem so from this scene.
And our slay.
Episode 2?
No, absolutely not.
Cancelled. Also, Bree, when she takes the gun out the box, she's like aiming and pointing it right ahead of her. Yeah, they're in the middle of a park. And to our American listeners, genuine question, please comment. Is this normal? Would you be stressed if you saw a woman doing this in the park, just pointing a gun randomly during her picnic? We'll include an image in our Instagram post for reference. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, what's going on here? The next scene is interesting because we get another date of Bree and George's. And I want to clock this moment because Bree knows how to date. Not once have her and George gone to the cinema.
You're so right for clocking that.
So Bree is setting up bottles for them to shoot and play with the gun. And she says, you always remember your first time. Because George has never shot a gun before.
And this potentially is like also a metaphor for other things that George has never done before. Just saying.
Yes. We've said before that this show doesn't particularly entertain subtlety.
Indeed.
And always remembering your first time, the gun, and so they're on a creepy farm.
They really are. It's nighttime. It's spooky.
And Bree is giving a gun lesson, and it's very much mimicking the cliche of a boy teaching a girl how to golf.
Yes, that is exactly what I said.
And George notes that Bree smells quite enchanting, and she says that she smells like macaroons. What I love about that moment is Bree clearly isn't feeling anything romantic. She's just being very matter of fact.
I think a moment that really encapsulates that is when he says something like he started forgetting what it feels like to be lonely, which is objectively so sad. And then Bree, who is just too excited, says, that's very sweet. Now let's shoot something.
If I weren't romantically attracted to someone, I'd spent a couple of dates with them, but I knew it wasn't going anywhere. What would perhaps change the tone and cause me to have an amount of enthusiasm, it would be if they said something like, I've got a Costco card. Do you want to walk around Costco?
There is only one correct answer.
Yeah. I need those giant slices of pizza.
So mine would be if someone invited me to play board games.
Yes.
Because I love board games, but I just don't have that. I don't have like a regular group of board games friends. I'm always latching onto anyone who wants to play. However, I will draw the line if they invite me to their home to play board games and I'm not attracted to them.
Yes.
Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, you're just inviting me over to have sex. I'm like, we'll go to the board games cafe and we'll see what happens.
We'll see if we'll play Snakes and Ladders.
I would never play Snakes and Ladders at Board Games Cafe.
Oh, baby, I know.
Follow up. If any of our desperados want to play board games with me, hit me up. If you live in Edinburgh.
We don't play board games enough.
We don't.
But then I'm not about to give us 4 more hours a week to spend together. That's what I'm not going to do. After this kind of mini gun lesson, George tries to kiss Bree and she winces away while holding a gun. So the gun goes off and George has been shot in the toe, rightly so.
Yeah.
I would like anybody who has any experience with guns whatsoever to let us know if you've ever shot your own toe.
Yeah. Give us like an out of 10 in the comments. So George is a 9 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? So in the next scene, Bree brings George some flowers in the hospital, consoling him by letting him know that the doctor said it was only his middle toe, it shouldn't affect his balance. And George is laying in bed. He's laying in a bed of his own self-pity, which gives me the ick more than I can possibly explain. He says that he always dreamed of kissing a beautiful woman before he died and that he blew his chance again.
It's disgusting, isn't it? Also, so I think it's interesting that last episode, Bree had set up a little bedside for Rex with flowers. And Rex commented that she must care about him. And she's letting him know that it was actually more just who she is. She's polite. She does these things. She brings George flowers, and I do wonder...
Is it just polite?
Is it out of politeness? And 100%. George is seeing it as additional care.
Definitely.
And Bree says, I'm so sorry you lost your toe.
My goodness.
Which kills me. It just does. It reminds me of, there's a Vine ages ago where this guy's like, I'm just going to say it. I don't care that you broke your elbow. That's the same energy.
So after him trying to say that he messed up kissing a beautiful woman, he says that he's used to it, but what he can't get over is the fact that Bree pulled away from him, which, given what ended up happening with the gun, is a wild thing to say. Bree reminds him that she's not even legally separated from Rex yet, and that he shouldn't trust a woman who's just had her heart broken. And I think that even at age 15, when I first watched this, with no knowledge or experience of relationships or dating dynamics or toxic behavior, even then, I could tell that at that time that George is such a blatant emotional manipulator.
Yes.
And I think that is why I hate him so much, because in the headcanon of Jakub's life, George is the original incel.
Yes.
Which will become so apparent in the next scene. George is a biblically accurate incel.
He's a biblically accurate incel. That is so true. And I'm so glad that you're the one saying it. He has the worst quality that I think a person can have, which is entitlement. It's specifically entitlement to another person. There are certain people, let's say in this scenario, men, because George is a man, that feel entitled to women because either they have taken them on dates, or they have spent time with them, or they are nice to them. Even though none of those things mean you're entitled to that woman.
And I think just in general, people that wallow in their self-pity, I just can't stand it. I can't stand it.
Yes. And I think if you have had a situation where you've recently broken up with someone or been brokenhearted, there are people that do try and swoop in and take advantage of that. And I have no time for it.
Would you like to wrap up the Bree arc with another infuriating George moment?
So, Bree is gardening in this scene with no hat, so I'm fuming anyway. And George is on crutches in his pharmacy coat. He is keen on Bree and wants their friendship back, but Bree is trying to let him down easy because she doesn't want to lead George on any more than she clearly already has.
I feel like you undersold that. George is begging her to still be friends with him.
Yeah.
Is literal begging.
George starts crying and I don't know what the verb is for this, crutching away and falls down 3 whole steps.
And I wonder if this was intentional and he's just trying to make himself look as pathetic as possible so he can like trick Bree into dating him out of pity.
Oh, well, yes. And that is definitely what he's doing. He's Ted Bundying. George crashes out and we see a temper that we have not seen before as he loses it and goes away. And Bree looks rightfully confused.
Yeah, he's aggressively yelling at her. I don't need anybody. It's insane. Get him in the bin.
Yes. It's not looking great for pharmacists. Episode title.
I'm so glad I've got that off my chest. Ever since I made the notes for this scene, I was like, I need to get this out. It was killing me. So I'm glad we've covered that.
It's also the fact that George is making Rex look good. That is really bothering me.
Sadly, or is it sadly? Matter of factually, I think that we have surpassed Rex's worst point in the Desperate Housewives timeline. And although he doesn't climb back to heights of I love this guy, not that he was ever there, it is an upward trajectory.
Redemption arc for Rex.
Yeah. It might be cut short, but we'll see.
Yeah. We're back to Carly.
Woo! So, apparently, I mean, after the George scenes, I'm excited.
I am obsessed with you.
Where was this energy in high school?
You're sounding a bit George-like. You're sounding a bit George.
So Gabby comes home. She is exhausted from another day of low-budget modeling, and she has a bucket of fried chicken, being too tired to cook. Carlos asks if she went by the hospital to see Mama Solis, certain that she'll wake up soon. Remember Mama Solis? Feels like a lifetime ago. But also, why has John the Child Gardener's mum not taken any further action yet? Kind of wild that she's sitting on that info. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked.
She could be taking action that we don't see. She could have that boy in therapy.
Yeah, but against Gabby. Like, come on.
Let her bide her time. I mean, it's only been maybe 2 years because of the weird timeline with Julie's birthday that might not exist.
Anyway, speaking of children, Carlos brings up the idea of having kids again, which starts another argument. We've seen it before. Gabby says she likes her lifestyle. Who'd be cleaning up the diapers when Carlos is in prison?
Yes.
Carlos comes back at her with her lifestyle is already gone, telling her to look around. And it escalates, and when Carlos claims to still be the man of the house, despite not doing anything to contribute towards it anymore, Gabby takes the bucket of fried chicken and walks across the road to sit on the pavement where Carlos can't get to with his ankle monitor bracelet, and starts eating the chicken in front of him. And the image of her doing this in this fancy dress on the sidewalk is so funny to me.
It's so good. I also love that it has been established in this scene already that Gabby wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
She is eating out of spite, and that I can get behind.
Mm-hmm.
So the next scene, Carlos is a grumpy puss and is saying that Gabby won't be there when Carlos comes out of jail, meaning that if he goes away for 5 years, Gabby is going to leave him. Carlos asks her to promise she won't ever leave, which I don't think is necessarily fair. But Gabby, with no emotion whatsoever, says, yeah, I promise, and leaves.
Yeah, it's very unconvincing.
And this conversation, which Gabby kind of deemed so insignificant, turns out to have had a massive amount of significance. Yeah. Carlos has heard here that he needs to give Gabby a reason to stay.
Let's not give him that much credit, though.
No, that's what's going on with him psychologically. He can have an absolutely insane response to that information. But I think that's what's going on with him. That's his motivation for his next horrendous choice.
Yeah. So do you remember the start of the episode when I was like, oh, Carlos is being playful. He seems nice. Anyway, so in this scene, Carlos goes down a rather unforgivable path.
He's hoovering at first.
He's hoovering as Gabby's leaving for work. He smiles at her. He's like, oh, look at me. I'm contributing to the household.
Suspicious Carlos is suspicious.
Suspicious Carlos is suspicious.
Look, I would have loved if they'd had him in the scene dusting with a sock. It was a missed opportunity.
Truly. We see him call the pharmacy again, this is not going to look good for pharmacists, I guess, that they're involved in this.
He's called George.
Yeah. And George is down to clown. He's like, oh, we're trapping a woman. Give me the deets. So he claims that Gabby has lost her birth control pills and asks them to deliver a couple months worth. He then switches out the pills for what are presumably just mints or something. And it's a complex operation. It's like those foil trays of pills. It's not a bottle. So he's like peeling back the foil, carefully resealing it. I hate this for Carlos's character development, but mostly I hate this for Gabby.
This is, I think, one of the most horrific things that you can potentially ever do to a person. And I am laughing about it because it's all I can do. But reproductive coercion is illegal. Let's start there. But also, it's not a thing where I can go, this was an impulse decision. Because the amount of care, the following up with the pharmacy, the delivery, the everything is so meticulous and calculated. He does not care about that he is giving her no choice over her own body, giving her no choice of what her life looks like in the future. He could potentially go to prison and she's a single mum all by herself, isn't really caring about the child at all. Because again, he could go to prison and not see them for the first 5 years.
Yeah, it's like he just cares about the idea of it.
This is very much, without getting too political, this is very much a hypocritical pro-life argument to me. What I mean is, really, there are people who like to take away people with uteruses choices to the point where they actually don't care about potentially the child that results in that. What they actually care about is the control over that person.
Yes.
As I said, it is an illegal thing to do. It is a real thing that affects a significant amount of people. In 2011, a study found that 10.3 million women in the United States reported having an intimate partner who tried to get them pregnant when they didn't want to, refused to use a condom, with 4.8% having an intimate partner who tried to get them pregnant when they did not want to.
That's an insane statistic.
And 6.7% having had an intimate partner who refused to wear a condom. So I realize, again, this is very John the Child Gardener episode 2 rant energy, but this is one of those situations where because this behaviour was somewhat seen and played off as funny at the time, the horrors of it are not being accurately conveyed.
Who needs jail more, Carlos or Gabby?
Well, this is one of those things where I start to go, maybe they are soulmates because they're two awful people.
Yeah, it's like Gabby keeps saying, you're going to be in prison. And I'm like, maybe you should just both go there.
Yeah, share a cell, babe.
Yeah, you can still be together.
The absolute hijacking of her body. I also want to say, Jakub, and I'm so sorry to go off on this little tangent, but there are so many reasons why women opt to take birth control. And it is not just to stop pregnancies. As somebody who has a chronic condition related to their womb, there are many forms of birth control that are treatment for those conditions. And I'm not saying that Gabby has that. I'm just saying I'm fuming.
And rightly so. So Susan approaches Felicia late at night, who is carrying some boxes out of Martha's house, offering to help. But Felicia cuts her off with such an aggressively toned, no, thanks. It's a bit of a jump scare.
I love that she has absolutely no time for Susan.
Truly, or anyone really. Yeah. At first, I thought Susan was there because she genuinely felt bad, but it quickly becomes clear she's only there to snoop and find out if Felicia knows anything about her burning Edie's house down that Martha might have shared with her. Felicia mentions Martha's journals and that she's holding them back from the police until she's read through them herself to prevent any family secrets getting out. Apparently, Martha wrote about every mundane detail, so it must have been very full, of her life, which naturally concerns Susan.
How many pages do you think were dedicated to mincemeat?
Oh, there's a whole series. Volumes 8 through 16.
Did you ever keep a diary?
No.
I wasn't a diary person either. I would start it, but I really couldn't cope with the idea of talking to myself, but trying to tell myself something that I already knew as if I didn't already know it.
I do you know what? I think if anything, it would be helpful to me. And actually, although I never kept a diary, there was a couple of years ago when I was going through a breakup, I did use the Apple journaling app, which they launched recently. I just used it for like a week or two, but it really helped me to kind of like put my thoughts into words. It's like I know, because I always know instinctively what I'm feeling, but it's hard for me to kind of put into words why I just didn't write diaries as a kid.
That's so interesting, because I think I'm the total opposite. I can verbalize it, but sometimes I'm talking about something and I've kind of gone, well, logically, this must be what I'm feeling. And I'll say that out loud. And then later on, I process it. And I'm like, that's not what I was feeling at all.
Oh, well, that'll happen with me if I try and have a conversation about something I've not taken the time to verbalize in my mind.
The next scene is the scene that I would like to call, Susan, I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? Because Susan is venting once again to her 12 or 13 or 14-year-old after what we thought a few episodes ago was her finally realizing that she had completely parentified her daughter.
Yes.
Julie says that she thinks Martha probably did put the house fire in her journal because she put it in hers. Love. I think Julie is secretly writing like a secret tell-all.
Oh my God. So that if her mum does go to jail, she can make money somehow.
Yes. So Julie's idea is, again, because she's a child, and I do think she is doing some oversimplification a little bit, in that she thinks Susan should just tell Edie the truth, because that's what kids think. Just tell the truth and everything will be fine. And she suggests groveling and begging.
Yeah. She thinks that, if Edie doesn't press charges, the police will leave it alone. Everything's good.
Yeah. And I think Susan's like, ugh, such bad advice. Oh, well, maybe just don't ask a kid.
But also, I don't think it's bad advice because I'm not sure what else you could do bar another plot line of Susan breaking into someone's house to steal the journals.
There's sometimes where I'm like, I think if Susan had gone to Felicia and gone, look, you know how you're trying to get your family secrets out of Martha's diaries? Could you also please rip up any pages about arson? And Felicia would be like, no problem. Don't worry.
Or maybe there'd be a resemblance to her sister and Felicia would just start blackmailing Susan immediately.
She doesn't need the money. Look at those shawls she wears, Jakub.
Oh, she's blackmailing her for the power of it.
Okay, fair enough.
So we are going to now get a rare Mike scene. It's unconnected to Susan's storyline, but I just felt it fits Beth with Susan because Mike and Susan. Mike comes home to find that his house has been broken into.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. The pile of cash, the gun, and all the maps, etc. that he's collated has been taken.
He's full Goldilocks. He's like, someone's been eating my porridge.
So all of that has been taken, and we will never be able to see Carlos's age. Because it's now gone.
It remains the biggest. This podcast was nearly called Carlos Solis. How old are you?
Oh my goodness. There's an answering machine message on his phone, which he plays, and it is his quote-unquote boss, the suspicious old man he met in the park quite some time ago, who had seemingly hired him to find out what happened to Mike's friend Kendra's sister, if that makes sense.
You're doing so well.
He tells Mike on the message that he's a shite detective. He's right.
Yes.
So he's taken back his money along with the little amount of information Mike was able to provide him.
Drag him.
Yes, to give to his replacement.
He's like, how old is Carlos, Mike?
And then at the end suggests Mike moves on with his life.
I think it's interesting that he says that Mike's replacement is going to need it. And it is very turning your badge.
Yes. I can't wait till we get to our next Mike scene in a little bit with the old man so we can get more of Erin's voice for him. I've been looking forward to it all week, baby.
And you are the only one, sir. So Susan approaches Edie, who is at the site of her new home that she's trying to have built for the first time. It's hard to tell. It's all a mess. And Susan is trying to slowly approach the idea that this rebuilding of Edie's home is in fact a blessing. Which is a wild thing to have. She says, I envy you. And Edie says, in the name of God, why? Edie is stressed. Edie is grieving. And she even says, my best friend was murdered and stuffed into a garbage bag, and nobody cares enough to go with me to spread her ashes. Susan, just leave this woman alone.
Yeah, I don't think she's concerned about being able to build her dream house.
No. I get it. Barbie's dream house. But and Susan, because as pre-established, she is an invitation slut, invites herself to go with Edie and scatter Martha's ashes.
Edie's having none of it, and she starts to go on a rant about how irreplaceable her memories are in the house, but cuts short to ask Susan what she wants, realizing she has an ulterior motive. And then once Susan has, invited herself along, because she's trying to essentially tell Edie that she's burnt her house down, but we're going to see a few scenes of her chickening out at all these opportunities she has to do that.
She's kind of, this first time, kind of making it sound like she wants Edie to thank her.
Also, I noted that Edie's incredible furry purple zip-up jacket.
I loved it.
In combination with the high pony, stunning. Obsessed with this combo.
No, I loved it.
So now we see Susan and Edie are en route to the lake where Edie will spread Martha's ashes. They're on the side of the road and Susan is changing a tire on Edie's car.
Yeah.
I don't believe Susan would be able to do that, but I'll suspend disbelief.
She can't make a mac and cheese, but she knows how to change a tire.
Wild. So while she's doing this, Edie compares their current dynamic to high school, which absolutely makes sense for Susan, which we have time and time again said is constantly giving high school behavior.
Yeah.
She basically confirms that Susan was a... Confirms? I don't know if that's right. So she says that Susan was a cheerleader and talks about how she was one of the girls who would hang out with the freaks, Edie's words, and smoke. And she says that the rules of high school still apply and that the cool girls only talk to the losers when they need something. And demands in this moment to know what Susan's ulterior motive is. And this, again, goes back to my worst neighbor being the mean girls collectively. I hate their treatment of Edie.
I think Susan being confirmed as a popular cheerleader makes sense.
Makes so much sense. That's why she's still living that high school fantasy, because that was a good time for her in life.
That was her, that was peak time. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way of, she peaked. I just mean, she had people around her. She felt safe. She felt loved. And it also makes sense that she's kind of still in that high school mentality because her best friend is a teenager. That wasn't even a read.
It's just fact.
It's just fact. Edie, we know that she had an alcoholic mother. We know that her mother was in prison. She was in the social care system in some way. So yeah, of course, she was probably hanging out with people that were alternative and maybe smoked a little bit and maybe rebelled a little bit. But I also think primarily, I would give the same advice to both of them here, which is you need to let high school go.
Truly.
I get it. I get it from almost both sides. I would say in terms of, there are things from high school you want to keep and you want to hold on to. And there are things that you want to forget and you feel traumatized by. But you just gotta, you're not that person anymore. And I mean that to both of them sincerely. You're not that person. Me saying that sat across someone who I've known since high school.
So, basically Edie's it's obvious from the amount Susan has been sucking up to her that she has an ulterior motive, agreeing to come along, paying for gas, now changing her tire, learning how to change a tire.
Well, yeah, she was saying that Edie has car club or AA or something, so she could have got somebody to do it for free.
Insane.
And Edie is also crucially, for the first time, in black.
She's in mourning.
Because she's in mourning.
Yeah. And as we know, Susan can commit to a bit. So she continues to act like she's just being there for Edie in her time of need, which is a wild choice when the whole reason Susan has come is to come clean to Edie about burning down her house.
Yes, and especially when Edie is so, just be honest with me. And from like episode 1, just tell it how it is.
Giving
just be honest.
every opportunity.
And then, this kind of hurt me a little bit. Susan says, I would have talked to you in high school.
And then Edie responds with, of all of the lies you've told, that one was the worst.
That hurt my feelings.
Yeah, the worst in terms of the least believable, but also the worst in like, that's just rude.
I also don't like Susan's making it sound like that was a favor or her being a good person by talking to someone who was seen as an outsider because she was popular. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, it's horrible, honestly.
Thank goodness we did not have cheerleaders.
Oh, thank God. That's very American.
Yeah, I always, whenever I see American TV shows and they have people who are in the band, I'm like, oh, that would have been me because I was in choir.
There we go. I played saxophone.
Hello.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, for like 2 or 3 years. But then once I learned how to play Every Time We Touch by Cascada, I gave it up because I'd peaked. That's true. That's genuinely true.
I know it's true.
I don't need to convince you. I'm just letting the listeners know.
I didn't know you played saxophone. The only person that I remember playing anything remotely interesting was my first ever boyfriend, who shall remain nameless. He played the trumpet. And I was like, how exotic. because it's true. Because all the other boys at school were playing guitar or the keyboard. And I was like, trumpet?
Ooh, spicy.
He's cute. He's a real musician.
Oh my goodness.
By the way, if the person who I'm referring to, right, some chance listens to this, I'm so sorry. And whenever I'm dragging people, I've never meant for you to be caught up on this.
Collateral damage.
You're not intended to be collateral damage.
I love the transition to the next scene because as they're getting back in the car, Susan like slams the door of Edie's car, and that's matched to a shot of Mike slamming his car door shut as he's getting out to go and confront suspicious old man from the park, but at his home.
Very, 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 very fancy house.
Yeah, it's an estate.
It's an estate.
Yeah, that's what we're talking here. There's like a gateway that you need a password to, and presumably, and then just like a mile-long pathway before you can even see the house. That's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, at first I thought it was a home for the elderly or something, like something that housed multiple people. Right. And then we also have the thing of in general, houses in the UK or in Edinburgh in particular are small compared to.
And so close together.
Last night I heard a Robbie Williams concert from my house and and he was so far away.
So Mike demands all of his stuff back, wondering why the suspicious man doesn't trust him to find out what happened to Deirdre. He says that no one loved her as much as he did. Dun, dun, dun. And I think that's the first thing we've ever heard her name. That's the first time we've ever found out that the person Mike is looking for, he had a romantic connection to. We're getting a lot.
Why? Because you loved her so much. You abandoned her, remember?
I'm so happy. The old man says he doubts Mike's commitment after he left his daughter for his late wife. So
who again doesn't get a name.
Exactly. We never will. So to sum up, the old man's daughter, Deirdre, sister of Kendra, used to date Mike and eventually went missing. And this is who Mike has been trying to find out answers about this whole time. But someone who doesn't have time is the old man.
Ooh, because he actually does have cancer, Lynette. So he would be able to get into the yoga class.
That's right. And he would get all of his adult kids into daycare.
Kendra's in daycare.
Episode title. So he wants to find out what happened to his daughter before he dies, basically.
And Mike gets violent with him.
Oh yeah, he like pushes him up against the wall and stuff. And this is an old, sick, elderly man. It's crazy. There's many factors to the mystery now. There's Dana, Deirdre, Mary Alice. But can we assume from the info we have that Deirdre is the woman who was chopped up and buried inside Paul and Mary Alice's toy chest?
Well, I don't think we can. Because we now know it's an adult, I think.
Yeah, it's an adult female.
We know it's an adult female. Okay, actually, maybe.
We know it's an adult female, and we know they must have had some connection to the lane because that's where Mike's based his investigation. So I think we don't know, but I think it's a fair assumption.
You're right. I was trying to think as a first-time viewer.
Well, it's hard because we have so many pieces now. It's just about starting to put them all together.
Yes. We also know that Mary Alice's real name is Angela.
Yes.
We have this kind of theory coming together, I would say, that the storyline is gearing us towards. That potentially Deirdre is chopped up into little bits and is in the chest that the Young family have, and is something to do with the fact that Angela changed her name to Mary Alice and whatnot.
And I think as well, still the biggest part of the mystery in terms of having the least information about is Zach talking about his little sister Dana, who is nowhere to be seen. And we know that she wasn't put in the box. So what's that got to do with anything?
And when Martha was confronted by Paul, she said, because of what she did to that baby. So now we have to wonder, are Deirdre and the baby connected? Are there multiple mysteries going on? And most crucially, how old is Carlos?
Oh my goodness. So then we cut to a little bit later. Mike and the suspicious older man, his boss, have calmed down. I can't remember if it's come up yet, but can we just start calling him by his name? The suspicious man is called Noah. I don't think it comes up yet, but it's annoying me.
You keep calling him suspicious man. In my notes, he's known as boss man. He's a man of many names.
Indeed.
Noah.
So he and Mike have calmed down from the previous argument. Mike is apologizing for getting so aggressive, and Noah seems to be putting his faith back into Mike. So Mike reveals a photo of himself with Deirdre that he always carries with him. Our first image of the woman that presumably ended up in Mary Alice and Paul's toy chest. Noah says that if it turns out that she was hurt, he wants whoever is responsible dead, and that he has faith in Mike that he will do it if the time comes, because he has already killed for her once. So we know that Mike has done time in prison before, and presumably this is why.
So I've got multiple things to say about this, so I'm going to try so hard not to get carried away with myself. But the first thing that I want to say is I have given a lot of credit to the writers of this show, and rightly so. One thing that I am confused by them about is they really gunned for Mike being a widow at the beginning of the series. Mike still being in love with his wife. I feel like they retconned this and tried to essentially merge the storyline with the Deirdre storyline. And we get the thing of, you left Deirdre for your safe wife. But he very much seemed to have been in love with his wife and grieving his wife, and yet he's carrying around an old picture of Deirdre. And it very much has this idea behind it that he still holds some sort of candle for her. So how many women is Mike Delfino in love with? And then I think about the fact that he said, I love you to Susan so quickly. The other thing I want to say is Paul Young decided to frame Mike for Martha's murder because he was the new neighbor. And the police went to his house to chat to him. But we now know that Mike has a record and that Mike has potentially, I can't remember if it's confirmed that he's been to jail before or if it's just said that he's been to jail before, but he said that you've killed for her once. So we know that Paul has picked someone accidentally who has already had dealings with the police, or at least has a suspicious history.
Yeah. Who would fit the bill for murder?
And speaking of the bill for murder,
No! I want to give that transition, that segue, an award, baby girl. I love it.
Which Noah, the suspicious boss man, do we think he's paid more than 16 grand to Mike for the murder of whoever has hurt Deirdre? One of my favorite things about this is Mike is so bad at his job.
Well, we can ask Susan because she counted all the money.
Now, We get to Susan and Edie on a cute little rowing boat. And Susan is over the situation. Susan is kind of pushing and rushing Edie, if I'm honest. And Edie begins to cry because she feels grateful to Susan. Edie says, I've been such a bitch to you over the years, and here you are, rowing me out here to dump her ashes. And Edie calls Susan a true friend, which I do think echoes back to what you were saying of she is kind of seeing their insults as playfulness and is kind of modeling her relationship with Martha and assuming that her relationship with the other women will be the same as that.
Mm-hmm. Because Martha's her only reference for like a real girlfriend.
Yes. And look, we've also, I remember, girls, do not feel sorry for me, okay? I'm very fulfilled. Okay. But I remember girls in high school who I thought were my friend, who were in fact not my friend, who were
nothing of the sort.
Nothing of the sort. And I think I genuinely thought that we were just poking fun at each other and having a nice time. And then slowly as an adult, you go, wait a minute, that person didn't like me. So I somewhat can sympathize with what Edie is going through, but bless her. Susan says, Edie, I burned your house down. And Edie dumps Martha's ashes onto Susan's face, saying, roll me back now. Everything about this scene is absolutely insane.
I mean, for me, it's the way Susan blurts it all out. Like, you said it quite calmly there, but Susan's like, Edie, I burnt your house down. And then like rambles off the full story in like 2 seconds, giving Edie no processing time. Truly waiting till the worst possible moment to reveal this.
I would have threw the ashes in her face too.
Yeah. And when she does, she literally looks like a 1,000-year-old mummy that's just been discovered. It's absolutely the funniest still I've ever seen on this show so far.
It looks like Hoover dust. Like the dust that you get over Hoover has gone over it. It's just so good. And I think I would have done it too. And I think it's what Martha would have wanted.
I agree. And I think Mary Alice would agree too, watching over it all.
Susan, you stupid bitch.
Yes, Susan was a stupid bitch. Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
So Susan and Edie get back to the lane, and Edie has been giving Susan the silent treatment for the duration of the journey.
I think it's important to note that Susan had to row Edie back, but Edie has driven her home.
Susan makes one more apologetic plea before getting out of the car. Edie confirms she won't go to the police because it will delay the insurance giving her a payout. However, there is something she wants from Susan. Edie asks to be invited to the girls' poker games.
Oh, she literally just wants a seat at the table.
Yeah, she's not saying she'll go or that her friends need to be nice to her. She just wants to feel included from time to time.
And she won't even go to every one.
I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Me too.
First, despite Susan seeming amenable to this, she absolutely does not invite her much going forward.
Yep. Yeah.
Second, it really is the least Susan can do. However, I would not want to hang out with a group of people who I know don't want me to be there. That would feel awful. Like if it was a forced invitation, that would feel awful.
I think that there is a part of Edie that thinks if these women got to know her, that they would see that she is one of them.
I 100% agree with that.
And if she just spends enough time with them, eventually they'll be nice to her. And it's sad.
And it's potentially true, but they will not give her a chance. It's horrendous. Before Susan goes to head inside, she says this. I guess I should go take a shower and wash Mrs. Huber off of me. But Edie doesn't want Martha's ashes to be washed down the drain. So she decides that she should hose Susan off in her front lawn so that Martha can see her house across the road and watch over the lane for all eternity.
I think in this moment, Edie is just winding Susan up and decides to waterboard her as punishment.
Yeah. However, I think it's also fair. I don't want these ashes down the drain. I don't think that's her motive, but you know.
It's a good lie.
Yes, much like the good lies that everyone but Susan told as to why they wouldn't be at the memorial.
You get it.
It's all coming back full circle, baby.
I like the symbolism as well of Susan being rinsed down by Edie and this kind of reverse baptism as like a cleansing of the sin of the house.
Yes. Yeah. So Edie then, as you can imagine, gets the watering hose and proceeds to humiliate Susan.
She waterboards her.
And she really does deserve it. So I love it.
Yeah. But also the symbolism again, fire and water, baby. So our final scene, we get our Mary Alice voiceover. We see Felicia actually seem a little bit sad almost before she crushes the missing poster of Martha and puts it in the bin. We see Gabby and Carlos at it, and it cuts to a foreboding picture of a woman holding a baby. We see Lynette trying to do solo yoga in the house while her kids are running around screaming. We see Mike reminiscing. We see Noah Suspicious Boss Man reminiscing.
So Mary Alice is saying through all of this montage, she's talking about the inevitability of death and that we all hope that something will happen to us before we die. But the sad fact is that not all lives have meaning, which is a really bleak takeaway for the episode. But with that, Erin, tell us what we see.
We see George, who is alone in his apartment, who the crutches are at his side, and he seems to be able to walk completely fine without them, suggesting he was faking the crutches. He has made a little dinner, and he's creepily watching the CCTV footage of Bree asking him out on the date from the pharmacy.
And the music is ominous AF. Hate it here.
George is Ted Bundy.
Truly. The voiceover finishes with Mary Alice saying that there are some people who spend their lives on the sidelines waiting for something to happen to them before it's too late. I hate it here. I'm going to say it right now, George is my monster of the week, and you should all prepare for that trend to continue.
George is consistently the monster of the week, isn't he? Carlos is also monster of the week to me.
Oh, yeah, that's probably more appropriate, to be fair. But
For bad neighbor, I don't know if I have a worst neighbor, but I have a best neighbor.
Oh, okay.
And my best neighbor goes to Felicia. And my best neighbor goes to Felicia because she comes outside and says, this is the date, this is the time, this is the murder weapon. She does a full Cluedo. This is where we need to know. This is where the body was buried. Thank you so much for your time. See you tomorrow.
She's an efficient gal. She's not wasting the neighbor's time.
Yeah.
There we go. And that's episode 12.
That's episode 12. And this was a great doubler.
I am obsessed with this episode specifically. I think the whole burning down of Edie's house is something that's just been on the back burner for so long.
Burner.
And, you know, Susan deserves consequences for that. So I'm glad it wasn't just she gets away with it.
I like the payoff as well of Martha knowing and her journals being uncovered, because it's a very subtle way of telling us that not only can Susan's secret be uncovered from these journals, but Mary Alice's. Also, I would like to tell the writers for Wisteria Lane a piece of advice, which is unwarranted and unnecessary. Feel free to ignore me. I am but a pimple on the face of the
fandom.
Of the fandom. Deirdre, Dana, Angela, these are very similar sounding names, and I'm getting very confused.
Please, we beg.
Kendra.
But they will give incredibly unique names to every one episode character. Jordana Geist.
Tiffany
Axelrod. Unforgettable.
Those are our aliases.
Bob Fisk.
Can you imagine if the pilot of Wisteria Lane is talking about Bob Fisk?
I will cry. I will literally cry. Note for Kerry Washington, please include Bob Fisk as a main character.
Oh my God.
We want to see Bongo's taxidermied body on his wall as proof.
So we posted a TikTok, guys, and it was about asking people what their most unhinged Desperate Housewives opinion was. And I shared mine, which is, as we all know, that Bongo was brutally murdered by Bob Fisk, the taxidermist. And somebody commented saying, Susan mentions in a later episode that Bongo died of old age, to which I said, the last person I'm going to trust is Susan.
Yeah. Also, side note, we started a TikTok account. So come and find us there.
We are at Modded Pod. Much like with the rest of this podcast, we have no idea what we're doing, but we are having a magical time doing so.
I can't wait for next week's episode. I think doing this double record was a lot easier than I expected, but just talking about it for so many hours today now, it's just hyped me up, and I can't wait to keep going.
Thank you so much. We love you very much.
Stay desperate. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out our Instagram for visuals, behind-the-scenes content, and more.
You can find us by searching for Modded, that's MEWDYD.
Or just search for Mary Alice, What Did You Do?
This podcast is brought to you entirely by us, Erin McGee
and Jakub Tanzi. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps us out.
Join us next time for another episode of Mary Alice,
What Did You Do?